Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are here for another episode. Today our guest is coming all the way from Medellin in Colombia, and his name is Andrew Campion. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So Andrew's got a really interesting background. He actually runs a rental business in Medellin, Colombia. And Medellin's a very beautiful city, by the way, for those of you who haven't been out there. It's got a lot of history, a lot of cool things to do. I really like it. And so I think it's really cool to have you on the show. So Andrew, before we get into your business, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 42 years old. I've been traveling most of my life, and I got to Medellin more or less by accident. I was just traveling around South America. I'd been doing that for about 2 or 3 years, just sort of after doing a bit of work in Australia, a bit of work in London. Then I arrived in Medellin as a backpacker, and I rented an apartment for myself and a couple of friends. And I did that for about a year. And then when one of my friends went back to Switzerland, I started renting out his room. And instead of just renting it out to some local person, I built a very basic 3-page website and started renting out the room to tourists on a daily basis. I think back then, 2006, I think it was, for about maybe $50 a night or something like that. And I would take people out and show them the city and be a bit of a tour guide. And that became quite successful. So what I did was rent 2 or 3 other apartments in the same building, and I went and bought the furniture for those apartments and then started renting out the apartments. And that happened for about 2 years, just renting out the apartments. And then after a while, other people who had come and lived in the city who had their own apartments came to me and asked me to manage their apartments. So that's how the business got started.
Okay, that's interesting. So you kind of started this business as kind of by chance.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is in IT, so I worked for Sony PlayStation in Europe, and I was a network administrator. Before that, I was working in IT and banking in different places around the world. So it was certainly not something that I had planned to do. No.
Okay, that's interesting. And can you tell us a little bit more about the scope of your business right now? Like, how many properties do you have, and sort of what type of clients do you cater to?
Yeah, sure. We have about 70 properties now, where because of our geographical location, we're fairly close to the east coast of the United States. So I would say that 80% of all our the demographic is 80% North American, 10% rest of the world, and 10% local Colombian traffic.
Okay, and what type of apartments do you have? Are they luxury apartments or simple apartments? Or
we've tried to differentiate ourselves a little bit from the competition by having at least a 3-star rating in terms of quality for the apartment. So while not all the apartments are luxury apartments, a good proportion of them would be considered luxury apartments. Certainly within the given the competition here, most of the apartments here, if you look at what Colombians consider to be a furnished rental as an alternative to a hotel, it's really just a very, very basics: a bed, a bedside table lamp, just extremely bare bones kind of accommodation. Whereas when I entered the market, I was actually the first person to offer accommodation or furnished apartment accommodation to foreigners. So I knew what people were looking for. I knew people wanted to get just that little bit of extra luxury. So all our apartments were built and designed with the foreigner in mind.
I see. And when you were building your business, how did you choose Medellin or Colombia in particular?
Well, that was an accident. I mean, I had seen most of South America on my trip. I started actually in Antarctica and just went north, and literally Medellin was the last city that I'd been to in the space of about 2 to 3 years of traveling. And Medellin just sort of struck me because it was one of the first places that I'd visited in all of South America where I thought this is a really fantastic place to live, just because the weather's nice, the people are really friendly, but mostly because there was a great deal of opportunity here. Most people would know Medellin for its fame with cocaine and Pablo Escobar and things like that. So tourist-wise, it really just wasn't on the map at all. In 2006, there was really nobody coming here. I was part of a group of backpackers who were, I guess, one of not the first people to come here, but certainly a very small portion of people that were adding Colombia to the list of places to go on their sort of South American trip. So when I got here, there was just one hostel. It was out of the main, what is now considered to be the tourist district. Now, where our office is located, which is now considered the tourist district, there'd be at least 50 hostels. So the growth has been quite dramatic, but even now with this really accelerated growth, it still pales in comparison to pretty much any other city in the world with regards to how well known it is. It still has a lot of problems with people's preconception of the city. So we're still, I mean, 70 apartments is still relatively small on a global scale, but it's in keeping with the growth, which is around about 10% a year in the growth of tourism in the city. And it's certainly the nicest city in Colombia.
Right, and I can definitely agree with that, because I actually spent a month in Medellin earlier this year, and this is when I met Andrew as well. And I think you're right. It's Medellin still has a bit of a notorious reputation and name, but I felt pretty safe in Medellin, and the neighborhood that you mentioned is Poblado, right?
That's right, yeah.
Right, and this is where I stayed as well, and it definitely feels very safe. And just like any location, you always have to use a bit of common sense. But I definitely don't think it's any more unsafe than most other places in South America.
No, in fact, you could make that same comparison to pretty much any city in the world. I mean, if you were going to go to Los Angeles, you probably wouldn't stay in. Well, I actually don't know Los Angeles, but there's parts of Los Angeles which are, I'm assuming like east. Is it South Central? You wouldn't go to stay in South Central necessarily, and you could say that probably about any city in the world. I know I'm from Melbourne originally, and I've spent time in Sydney and London, and there's places I wouldn't go in either one of those cities as well. So, I mean, it's comparable in that sense. In Poblado, it's a very first world city with pretty much every luxury that you'll find in any other major city.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, one thing I'd like to ask you, Andrew, is how did you first hear about Airbnb, and what's your involvement with Airbnb at the moment?
As a property manager, I mean, I've always been focused on my own personal website. Like I said, my background was IT, so I had a bit of knowledge. I didn't know anything about web design, but I knew my way around a computer. So I learned fairly quickly, and my website, in terms of search engine optimization, always did fairly well. Of course, I was first to market as well, so that helped having that edge. But my website, the Apartment Medellin, has always been number one. If you search for, Medellin rentals or apartment in Medellin, furnished rentals, all those kinds of things, we've always done very well directly, organically with search results. So that's how we built the business, basically on the back of having a very strong internet presence. So as we grew, and it wasn't until I would say the beginning, January of 2012, that I really even paid any attention at all to third-party listing sites. At the beginning of 2012, first of all, I merged with another company, First American Realty, and so we took on another 40 apartments. So we felt at that point we could probably do with the help. And the other game changer for us really was moving to a booking platform, because the booking platform then gave us the ability to automatically link our apartments with other booking platforms. Because up until that point, the biggest hurdle for me, I guess, was having so many apartments and then having to maintain that many apartments on different listing sites. It's completely unpractical, being able to, or having to literally change pricing or change photos when they're updated, and just manage 70 apartments times 1, 2, 3, 4 different listing sites. It's just impossible, and I just didn't ever feel like really doing that. Once I had the opportunity to do that automatically, I did so with HomeAway and FlipKey, but I pretty much ignored Airbnb for the most part for that same reason. And that's because we had, I think, I want to say 4 or 5 listings on Airbnb at around the beginning of 2012, and I really didn't pay any attention to it at all. I really didn't. I saw it as really just another listing site that was going to require a lot of time and attention. And of course, because we didn't really pay much attention to Airbnb, we weren't getting very many inquiries through Airbnb. So pretty much up until fairly recently, actually up until I met you in April, it was really a platform that we had largely ignored.
I see. And now, so now since April, I guess, it started to pick up, or how would you say it's been a part of your current business model?
Well, we've built a lot of new inventory in the last maybe 2 or 3 months, short-term inventory. I should point out as well that our inventory is mostly long-term, in that it's mostly 30 days or more due to the law here in Colombia. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years is actually building our own inventory, so converting small apartment buildings into, or small office buildings actually, into apartment buildings, and renovating those buildings and creating 2, 3, 4, 5 apartments. So we've had a fairly sudden expansion in a short period of time of our short-term inventory. And because our business model had moved to mostly long-term, we really felt like we were struggling to fill these short-term properties. So we sat down and looked at ways of doing that. And I'd just met Jasper, and you guys were coming up with your book, and we took another look at Airbnb and thought to ourselves, well, we're going to need to really promote on another listing site. Let's look at Airbnb again, look at what we're doing wrong, and see how we can improve that. So at that point, we did some improvements. I still was not completely convinced, I have to say, about maintaining another platform, but we did upload all of our listings to the website. I want to say that was the beginning, maybe around the beginning of this year. But it wasn't really until you guys released your book that I read through it, and we started looking at it seriously, thinking that this could really give us some more inquiries. And I read the book and I went through it page by page and made a list of about 20 different things that we could do to improve our listings on Airbnb. And just probably in the last, it's really kind of been quite an exponential improvement. We added all the units, then we would do a few changes to them, but just probably in the last, I want to say even just in the last month, or maybe in the last couple of months, it's really just been exponentially improving until even just today, actually, I looked at my profile and we're finally up to the 100% response rate within an hour, and with the calendars updated every day. So we've gone literally from doing maybe 1 or 2 inquiries every, maybe 1 inquiry a day, to yesterday, literally we had 10 inquiries and we closed on 7 of them, and currently the other 3 are pending on pre-approval. So it's quite a difference.
Oh wow, that's great. Do you? What were some of the big things out of the book in general? So I know you said you made a list of all these notes. What were some of the big light bulbs that went off as you were going through?
Well, when we first put the listings on, I think after we had done that, there was a format change to Airbnb, and they added a number of different things that weren't there before. So when we went back in there, when I got the book and I went back in there to look at our listings, I noticed that there were 2 or 3 or 4 different fields that just weren't even filled in. I think like house rules and a few other things that were added within the last 12 months were just not filled in. So that was the first thing. We just had to, we weren't filling in the information. Also, obviously the biggest thing for Airbnb is that they want you to make bookings through their system. They want to make money, and of course they reward you for making bookings. So, and we had really put, and what I had said to my booking agents is, deal with our direct clients first, deal with clients who are coming through booking systems that aren't costing us a big commission, and on the line of priority, Airbnb was kind of way down there. And I actually had a look this morning in January of this year. I looked at a whole page of inquiries and we didn't close on any of them. So we were basically waiting to fill up the gaps with everybody else, and then looking at Airbnb as like the 3rd or 4th priority. And of course, by that time, we were either slow to respond or we didn't have the apartment available, so we're declining everybody. So I think that was the biggest thing, was the fact that we just weren't making any bookings through Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So now that we've started to do that, it's just a knock-on effect. The more bookings you do, the more reviews you get, the higher you get in the rankings, and then the more inquiries you get, the more bookings you do, and so forth and so forth. So now it's really now. Probably from the last 2 months, I said to our booking agents, look at Airbnb first. And actually the biggest thing for me personally was the Airbnb app, the mobile app. So I downloaded that myself personally, and I had our booking agent download that and use that. And literally I was on my mobile phone all the time, and as soon as an inquiry came through, it would give me a notification, and I would personally respond to that. And even if I was at 10 o'clock at night, I would just send them a message saying, "Yep, we'll get back to you tomorrow morning." And that I think was the real game changer. Getting those inquiries down to less than an hour, and of course getting the number of inquiries up to 100% was some of the biggest things that we did to really turn it around with Airbnb.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a really good point. It's very important to be really responsive, because a lot of people who search on Airbnb will make inquiries for different listings. So imagine from the perspective of a client, if you send out 4 messages, and whoever responds first probably has the best chance of getting the deal. So I think I personally use the Airbnb app as well, and always try to respond as quickly as possible. And unless I'm sleeping, which is I can do a lot, but responding when I'm sleeping is not something that I'm very good at.
And I think it's actually more than that. I think what I really like about that is you enter into a chat with someone, and that chat is much more personal than an email. So you can just go back and forth with someone, chat. It's an actual conversation, and with the conversation, you can pretty much start and end the conversation and nail down that booking in just that 5-10 minute conversation going back and forth. Especially if that person gives you an inquiry and you respond immediately, then they're already on the computer or on their mobile phone, and that conversation starts, and you can grab them and you can sell them right then and right there. And I think that's the most powerful thing. With email, there's always this, it goes back and forth, and they've got time to think about it. If you're chatting to them, you can be as personable as you like. You can give them information about the apartment, really important things that people need, and get that sale right then and there on the mobile app.
Absolutely. My next question is, what are the challenges that you kind of face using Airbnb Business Property Manager? Because we've talked to a lot of hosts who are renting out like maybe 1 or 2 rooms in their building, or just one house or one apartment, but it must be different being a property manager with so many different listings.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing obviously is what we've spoken about is having to manage them all. One thing that I can't do, and I wish I could do, is variable pricing. And I think that makes a big difference for people. I know that you mentioned that in your book, and you do that yourself. Say you have an availability with your apartment, and it's maybe 7 days out. You'll reduce the pricing. Then when it's 3 and 2 days and 1 days out, you'll adjust the pricing accordingly. That would be fantastic if we could do that. Unfortunately, just with 70 apartments, we just are unable to do that. And in that kind of micromanagement of every single property is just something that a property manager cannot do. We just don't have the resources to have our booking agents going in and adjusting pricing on every single unit. It's just not possible. But I mean, the good thing is once the listing is up there, once you take care of that listing and make sure it has everything it needs, everything's filled out, you've given people all the information. We also implemented Instant Book, which I think has also helped. Most of the work is done, and I think once you're also using the mobile app, you can do pretty much everything. The pricing would be a nice thing to have. We're actually using a yield management system for our website, so we can automatically adjust prices based on occupancy and time to book. And I think eventually there'll be an app that, or Airbnb will do it, or someone else will do it that'll tie into Airbnb, and that'll make that job a little bit easier for us to do and give us that capability. But right now, I think that's probably the one thing that we're missing. But we, of course, when somebody sends an inquiry, we can always make a special offer and do discounts. So, for the most part, that's covered. But I would say just having to do things in bulk is the biggest negative, and the fact that you cannot connect Airbnb currently to any booking platform so that you can automatically update pricing or photos or anything.
Now, by the way, when you were setting up some of these Airbnb listings, do you by chance get to take advantage of the Airbnb professional photography service?
We do, and we are using it. We have a professional photographer down here who takes photographs of all our properties. He's actually the same person who takes photographs for Airbnb, so it's kind of funny. Oh. So we sometimes we'll send him to the same apartment, and he'll take the photos for Airbnb, and then he'll take the photos for us. So it's convenient. We haven't yet. We're in the process now of going through all our listings. That's one of the things on that 20-point list to do. We do have the verified Airbnb photos for some of our units. It's kind of on that list of priorities. It was down on the list because we do have very nice photographs of the properties. But having that Airbnb verified just adds that little bit of extra confidence for the person who's going to book the apartment. And so we are going through a process now where our photographer is going out individually to each one of the apartments and taking those photos again, just so we can get them up on Airbnb with the verified photo.
Now, I have to say, for all the listeners, I've looked at Apartment Medellin, I've looked at your apartments, and as you said, there is a wide variety, but they are really nice. So if anybody is planning on taking a trip to Medellin, check out the website. I mean, some of these places are just gorgeous, huge, gorgeous, and the decorations are really nice. So yeah, I mean, you guys have done a great job in assembling a really nice collection of luxury apartments. It's really cool.
Thank you, man. You're welcome anytime.
Absolutely. And I did spend some time as well in Medellin and Poblado. Are you familiar with the Charlie Hotel?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we stayed, but it was really fun. It was great. So now that you are kind of getting up and running with the Airbnb and you've got your traditional business model running alongside, now you've also mentioned that, for example, it's a bit difficult to keep it updated and to tweak the prices and so on. With your individual website, do you find that to be something that you can do a little bit more easily, or is it a challenge across the board?
Well, with yield management in particular, which is the automatic adjustment of pricing, we have an application which does that automatically. I mean, my whole philosophy on anything, on business in particular, is to, not to try and reinvent the wheel and make things as easy as possible and be as efficient as possible. So everything that I can do that automates something, I'm very excited about. So that's one thing that we're using right now. It's one thing that I can't use on Airbnb. But in terms of having the two systems running in parallel, I think, based on current performance, we may see that, well, to give you some percentages, let's say 2 months ago, around 30% of all our bookings were coming through third parties. So that's Booking.com, Flipkey, HomeAway, and Airbnb, and a couple of other third-party agents. And Airbnb was probably well down on that list, and within that 30%, probably less than 5%. Now, just in the last, let's say for August this year, particularly just looking at the short-term apartments, it's around 25% of all our bookings. So it's quite a monster we're growing. I think that's one issue maybe that, if you can call it an issue, is that it's becoming almost as powerful and as important as our website. The Airbnb bookings are coming in. And I think if we look at the trajectory of how well we're doing with Airbnb, I can see that maybe that 25% goes up to 50% at some point. So, which is fantastic. But as a property manager, you always are aiming to be listing site free. I mean, if you can get 80% occupancy or more with direct sales, of course you want to do that. You don't want to pay a commission if you can avoid it. So in some sense we're creating a monster, but right now it's certainly allowing us to grow, and the important thing is that we have a lot of new inventory coming online. We're building several different properties which will come online in the near future, so maybe 13, 14 new short-term properties in the next 6 months. So Airbnb is really honestly a lifesaver. It's been perfect timing for us to have Airbnb come on and really just fill up a lot of these gaps, and it'll certainly be able to help us push forward and be able to give that sort of, we give a more or less a guarantee to people that we'll give people 75% occupancy year round, and we've always done that for the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So this Airbnb is going to really help us to achieve that.
And that leads into another question I have for you, because I personally believe that these vacation rental sites and Airbnb in particular will become very dominant in the vacation rental industry, because I believe that, you know, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, very few people will be Googling apartment in city X or country Y, and instead everyone will just go to their preferred sort of platform and search there. Do you agree with that vision, or what are your thoughts on the future? Like, let's say the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, my view obviously has to be that we don't want that to happen, because that means we're paying anything from 8 to 13% commission on every booking. Our objective as a property management company is to retain clients, and one way to do that is to look at the Airbnb mobile app and create an app of our own, because we want to keep the clients that we get. We want to keep them, and we want to get some more. So I think I agree that these booking platforms are getting stronger and stronger, particularly Airbnb. I mean, I'm familiar with, I'm using 4 or 5 different ones, but Airbnb really stands out. They're some of the things they do are very, very clever. And I think more than anything, Airbnb is going to grow. I don't see necessarily that HomeAway or Flipkey will grow anywhere near as quickly, because Airbnb, for me, the demographic that we see with Airbnb is not the usual demographic that we see coming through our doors day in and day out. The kind of people that are using Airbnb are people who would normally stay in a hotel and, you know, are trying out this app for the first time and want to check it out and see what this whole apartment rental business is all about. So we're finding it's a lot of first-time people and or people who use Airbnb and who will only ever use Airbnb because that's their platform. They've used it, they like it, and they want to keep using it. So we're getting a lot of new clients through it. I mean, it's good. It's actually adding to the number of people that we get, and the demographic that we get is a little bit broader. I'm hoping that with the people that we get through Airbnb, once they come down and they get to know us, they get to know us as a company, that they then choose to come back and stay with us as a company, whether that's through Airbnb or directly. I guess it doesn't really matter. Obviously, we prefer them to come back directly, but our aim is to provide the best customer service that we can, and get these people to come back directly through us.
And I think you're right. I feel like Airbnb has kind of cultivated a community of very loyal users, and I'm one of them. I used to rent out on a few different platforms, and I totally agree. I think Airbnb is doing the best job, and that's why I think they will have a dominant position in the future. And also, as a traveler, when I travel somewhere, the Airbnb is the first platform where I look at, and I sometimes think, why am I not looking at other platforms? Because I might be missing out on really good places to stay. But for some reason, I have this feeling that I want to stay at an Airbnb place because I have such a positive association with the brand, and I think that's one of the things that Airbnb has managed to do really, really well.
Yeah, actually, one of the things, and this is actually one of the issues between property management on a medium to large scale and the Airbnb typical client, and the whole ethos, I think, of Airbnb is that they want to sell an experience. So when the client goes to stay in a place, and if you look at the Airbnb website, you look at the video they have on the website now, it's all people that are sharing a very personal experience. Often it shows people sharing a house, and they're speaking with the people that are living there. They're really selling that experience where when you go somewhere, you get to meet the host, and the host sort of shows you around and gives you a bit of inside information, and you get to know a place much better than you would if you were staying in a hotel. So that's very hard for us as a business to give that experience, the very, very personal experience to each and every client. We understand that that's how the industry is changing, and we need to do that, and we're moving towards that to try and be as personal and give everybody as a unique as an experience as possible. But that's what Airbnb is cultivating. So it's certainly a challenge if you're a large business to provide that to every single client. And I know that some of the people that we have had through Airbnb were a little disappointed that, as a business we're doing things as efficiently as possible. And I think we as a business need to sort of change the way that we think a little bit and not be quite as efficient, and then and add a lot more customer service and a lot more personalized experience, so that we can meet the challenge of making the Airbnb demographic happier. I think that's in general the way that vacation rentals are going.
Andrew, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. This has been really cool to hear your insights, and it's been really cool to hear about your journey using the Airbnb platform and sort of figuring it out and adjusting. So thank you. As I said, Andrew's apartments are amazing. So Andrew, can you plug your website one more time?
Sure. You can find us on theapartmentmedellin.com. We've got about 70 apartments. So you can go to the website, you can plug in your dates, and it'll tell you what's available. And just hit us up with an email or a phone call, and we'll get back to you straight away.
All right, and all this information and more can be found at our show notes. You can find our show notes at www.getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. And to get more information, just like Andrew did from our book, Get Paid for Your Pad, go to www.getpaidforyourpad.com. And by the way, guys, our Kindle launch for Get Paid for Your Pad is on August 26th. And if you get on Amazon on August 26th, you'll be able to get a copy of our book for free. All right, guys, that's it for today's show. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.